Good evening and welcome to the Medgar Evers College Presidential Lecture Series, Decoding Social Justice with Dr. Patricia Ramsey. I'm Kimberly Whitehead, Senior Vice President for Strategy and Chief of Staff. Our third and final session for the lecture series for this semester is focused on access to advocacy through education. It's my pleasure to introduce President Ramsey and our lecture series guest, Dr. Harry L. Williams, President and CEO of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Dr. Patricia Ramsey was appointed by the City University of New York Board of Trustees to serve as the sixth president of Medgar Evers College a little over a year ago, and she started her tenure on May 1st, 2021. She is the first woman and first scientist to serve in the role, and after only a short time as president, was named to City and State's 2021 Brooklyn Power 100 list. Distinguished as a national role model by Minority Access Incorporated, Dr. Ramsey is a national and international leader and a scholar with a deep commitment to excellence and a passion for making a difference. President Ramsey was named to City and State's Higher Education Power 100 list March of this year. Through her presidential theme Access, President Ramsey is moving Medgar Evers College forward to its next level of excellence. Our guest, Dr. Harry L. Williams, serves as president and CEO of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, the nation's largest organization exclusively representing the Black college community. TMCF's 47 member schools are America's publicly supported, historically Black colleges and predominantly Black institutions, educating nearly 300,000 students. Under his leadership as president and CEO, TMCF has created innovative partnerships, increased organizational stability, and advanced bipartisan HBCU support. Prior to his tenure at TMCF, Dr. Williams enjoyed a successful 8-year tenure as president of Delaware State University, increasing student enrollment and forging new public-private multi-million-dollar partnerships, grants, and investments into the campus. He has received many awards and accolades for his career in higher education and previously held senior positions at the University of North Carolina General Administration, Appalachian State University, and North Carolina A&T State University. We are delighted to have both President Ramsey and Dr. Williams in this space with us tonight. President Ramsey.
Well, thank you, Dr. Whitehead. And hello, Dr. Williams. I'm just so happy that you are able to be with us this evening. And I'd just like to start out by having you, Dr. Whitehead, read some things from your bio, but I'd like you to start out by telling our audience just why are you so passionate about Thurgood Marshall College Fund?
Well, first of all, Dr. Ramsey, thank you for this invitation to be a part of your presidential lecture series. The only thing that's disappointing, I'm not there in New York. I wanted to come to New York. I wanted to be with you face to face, but I'm here in Washington, D.C. In the Zoom world. So I'm so delighted to be a part of this lecture series. I'm so delighted that you are showcasing the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Yes, I get up every day excited about the work that we do because we are in the business of changing lives. And you know that personally because you're doing that there as the president of that great institution where you're running, Medgar Evers College. And so the passion and the drive to know that we're working for an organization, I love the theme that you have is about social justice. So our organization is named after the very first African-American Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. So that's the legacy we carry out every single day here. And Justice Marshall was about educating, creating opportunities to advance individuals by using education as that tool to get you to that next level. Thurgood Marshall was a 2-time HBCU graduated at the top of his class at one of the oldest historically Black colleges and university in America. And I believe you worked there 1 minute as a provost at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And then he went on to Howard University and graduated from law school, and I believe you passed through Howard too. So you have followed the trail of legacy, the legacy of our namesake. And what we do here, we're so passionate about unapologetically supporting Black students that attend our 47 historically Black colleges, universities, and public university, including Medgar Evers College. So you're part of our network, you're part of our team, and knowing that we are providing opportunities for students by using the name of Thurgood Marshall and carrying on his legacy of social justice, fighting every day to make other people who are also fighting so we can help to improve the lives of those individuals. So education is that answer. And so we're so excited about this work. We're excited about the number of students that we are impacting and helping them to have a better life, moving them from, we still serve a large population of students. 40% of the students that we serve in our network would be classified as first generation, and another 80% would be eligible for the federal assistance program, Pell Grant, which means that our students have financial challenges. And we know that when we help those students move through this pipeline so that they can have a better life, moving from poverty to the middle class. That's our job. And we get up every day focused on that. And that's exciting. So I'm happy to be with you to talk a little bit more about that. But I know you asked me that question, but I wanted you to know that this is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Knowing that we are impacting so many students in a positive way is something that's very exciting to me.
Yeah, well, thank you. And listening audience, I know that you could tell the passion that Dr. Williams has for this work. And one of the things that we often speak about is how education can really create some upward economic mobility, if you will, through our institutions. And so Thurgood Marshall College Fund has been doing a number of things to help institutions such as Medgar Evers College, because our institutions tend to be more under-resourced than some other institutions. And so Thurgood Marshall College Fund has been working very hard to make sure that they have partners that are able to assist us in moving our institutions forward. Could you talk a little bit about some of those programs that Thurgood Marshall College Fund is involved with? I know that you've done a lot of great things for us in a very short period of time since I've even been here, but there are so many other institutions that are involved. So could you talk a little bit about some of those programs?
Yes. So just to kind of give your audience an overview of our focus, we started out 35 years ago as the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund. And the reason why our founder, Dr. N. Joyce Payne, and Dr. Ramsey, Dr. Payne, Dr.
Yes.
N. Joyce Payne had the vision of creating an organization that would unapologetically focus on serving the HBCU community in a way that would raise scholarship dollars to help those students so they don't have to take out loans and to reduce the amount of loans that they were having to take out to go to college. So in that, we have evolved into an organization that not only provides scholarships, we do the full circle thing. We provide career opportunities for people who are looking to move into the corporate world. What we have a strong Leadership Institute program, getting students ready for corporate America. And we've had students from Medgar Evers College who served as a what we call a Thurgood Marshall Fellow. And they have an opportunity to interview for major jobs. We have partnerships with 150 corporations, and 50 of those corporations are Fortune 100 companies. And so we do a lot of educating and preparing students to make that transition to corporate America. As I stated, 40% of our students would be the first in their family to graduate from college, but we have an even higher percentage of students who will be the first in their family to work in corporate America. So part of our job is to get those students what we call corporate ready for those opportunities. So we do a lot of leadership development, a lot of coaching, a lot of training and preparation. And then the third element of what we do, we're an advocacy organization. We advocate for all of our HBCUs and PBIs here in Washington, D.C. We have recently been able and been very fortunate to have received over $6 billion from the federal government to support HBCUs in the last 2 years. A lot of it had a lot to do with the very unfortunate incident that happened with George Payne and Breonna Taylor, and those very tragic incidents that impact this country, but also the pandemic played another impact in putting the spotlight on our community and recognizing that our community during this pandemic, we have disproportionately been impacted, more so in a negative way in terms of people that we have lost through this pandemic because of inequities that's within our healthcare system. So part of our responsibility and part of our challenge is to continue to create opportunities to educate and provide people with those opportunities so they can get out of that current situation. So that's why we advocate for our institutions. All of our institutions, including Medgar Evers College, have been underfunded. So part of our effort here is to make sure people recognize that this organization is designed to support the infrastructure and getting resources for our HBCUs in a very positive and strategic way. So those are the three major pillars in terms of what we do here at Thurgood Marshall College Fund with the advocacy and capacity building to support all of our HBCUs. We work collaboratively with UNCF, United Negro College Fund, which is a organization that is set up primarily to help the private HBCUs. And so we work with the public, but we work together to support all 101 HBCUs in this country.
Well, thank you for that. And one of the things here in New York City, people often speak about Medgar Evers College as an HBCU, but of course we are a PBI, a predominantly Black institution, and therefore it wasn't until after 2008 when then Senator Barack, now then became President Barack Obama, actually introduced that bill. And so PBIs have been around as it relates to a congressional designation for a shorter period of time. And therefore, a lot of times there is a little bit of confusion regarding that. And since you at Thurgood Marshall represent both historically Black institutions and PBIs, do you find yourself in a position of having to explain sometimes what that difference is?
Absolutely. To your point, PBIs and HBCUs is just a designation. They're still Black students that we're serving, right? And so yes, we are beginning to start focusing in on trying to change the narrative as it relates to when members of Congress are speaking about historically Black colleges and universities. We also want them to include PBI in that conversation because we're the same when it comes to the type of students that we serve. And then in the reality, there are more students enrolled at PBIs than there are at HBCUs. And there are more Black students enrolled at those. There are about 67 PBIs in the country that serve over 300,000 students, and that number is growing from that perspective. And so therefore, it's important for people to understand that, from a funding perspective, that there are needs at our public PBIs, predominantly Black institutions, just like there are at our historically Black institutions. The HBCUs have, those students those institutions that fell in that bucket is basically a federal designation, as you know, President Ramsey, based on those institutions that were founded before 1964 with the sole purpose of educating Black students. And so that's how that HBCU designated popped in. So anybody that were founded after 1964, they would fall into that PBI category. And there are institutions that have, such as, Medgar Evers College, where you serve a very diverse population of students, but they have similar challenges that our students are facing at our historically Black colleges and universities. So yes, that is something that we are definitely working on and putting a emphasis in that from a funding perspective to make it a little bit more equitable?
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting to me. Of course, most of my career has been at historically Black institutions. And so I do find myself even in a position of having to explain because as a matter of fact, just on Friday, we had I did a presidential chat, and one of the questions had to do with the difference between the HBCUs and PBIs as it relates to funding, because some of or actually much of the information that comes to us will say HBCU, and some of it we don't qualify for because we are not an HBCU. So I'm really happy to hear about the advocacy on behalf of PBIs. And for an institution like Medgar Evers College, although the institution was founded or chartered in 1970, the community actually started in 1963, trying to get this institution established. It was the powers to be that was in New York City at the time that kind of gave them pushback, and they continued to advocate for a college in Central Brooklyn community. And that advocacy went on for years, but it started in 1963. So there are some things we probably need to look at here at Medgar Evers College as it relates to that. But you spoke about some of the programs and for students, and you mentioned that we had some students even from here to participate. And I think our current student government president even is one of the students that had an opportunity to participate in one of the programs. And so what would you say is the importance of having a mentor? What kind of advice would you give a student regarding having a mentor for them to be able to achieve the goals that they are trying to achieve?
You know, that's a very, very good question. And for those students that are listening, I cannot emphasize enough of having someone that you have a great deal of respect for and admiration for, that you will listen to. And this is a key: listen to. Those individuals, they see things that you can't see right now, but they are going to give you advice that will help you guide your path. And I had those individuals. I still have those individuals in my life today that I can call on. These are people that you can call on that will tell you the real deal, and without any I call icing on the top. They'll just be very clear and direct to you and say, hey, look, Harry, you need to do this. Look, Harry, I had a mentor who called me into his office when I was a graduate student. And he said, Harry, if you want to make it in this business, I'm only going to say this to you one time. You need to go back and get your union card. And I said, union card? What's that? I know you're in a city that you understand unions, and you got to have a card to navigate. I said, what's the union card? He said, you need to get your PhD. He said, that's the only way you're going to be able to advance and move forward and move up. And I think you have the potential to do that. But if you don't go back and get that, that's going to limit you. But it's up to you. He said, I'm not going to tell you again. I'm not going to mention it to you again. You decide on what you want to do. And it was that person, because I had so much respect. I didn't see myself as someone getting a doctorate, but because I had so much respect for that person to come out of his office to come to my office. And he was a high-ranking individual. He was a provost. I know you were a former provost, and those who understand, that's a big time position, especially when you are at a level where you're not at the provost level. It's the second most important position outside of the presidency on a college campus. And when you have a provost that can come into your office and say, hey, you should do this, you need to listen. And I listened to that person, and it was the best advice. It was hard. It was very hard. I didn't want to do it. I didn't see myself doing it, but he saw me he saw something in me, and he believed that I had what it took to go through a process like this, and I took it. And I just can only imagine if I would have said no and where I would be right now today. from that perspective. So having mentors and those individuals in your life to provide you with guidance and counseling is so important. So I would encourage those who are in this space, even as a student, listening to your faculty member, listening to your coach if you're involved in an athletic activity. Those individuals are the ones that will push you. And sometimes it hurt being pushed, but it's not going to hurt. It's going to feel better after you get through that pain on the other side of it. So that's a very important question, and I'm glad you asked me that, President Ramsey, because I cannot underscore the importance of having mentors in your life.
Now, and thank you for that. And so for those for our students who have been involved with Thurgood Marshall, with the Leadership Institutes and other programs, and the students who are currently in school, I think they kind of get it that the education is important because they're moving in that direction, and having mentors being so very important as a part of that. And we had right now we're in our celebration time for commencement, and on yesterday there was an event where they brought alumni back to talk with the students, and one of them talked about the importance of networking, and that and when we were having a conversation at the table, talked about your network, your net worth is no bigger than your net worth. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I like the fact that you're re-engaging your alumni to come back and talk to the next generation of students that are moving forward. And one of the things that I like telling students, especially young students who are just starting, being a former president, one of the things, we like to give advice. And one particular advice that I share with students, and I want the students who are listening to hear this, is that, when you are in a journey of moving forward and getting connected to what the president just related as far as building your network and being connected with a lot of different people, when you're building that network out, you're going to run into people that are, especially in your job, wherever you end up working, you're going to run into people that they see stuff in you that you don't see in yourself. And I want you to be prepared to say yes. Now, that's important. Be prepared to say yes. And what I mean by that is if someone comes to you and say, hey, I want you to do this job, but it's located in Tupelo, Mississippi, and you're in New York City, don't be thinking about, well, I've never been to Tupelo. I'm comfortable right here in New York. I don't want to leave New York. I want you to say, yes, I want to go to Tupelo, because that could create even more opportunities for you when you have those. I have always said yes when people ask me to do certain things, and knowing that it was sometimes I didn't even know what they were asking me to do. But because I respected the individual so much, and because they have achieved a lot in life and they saw something in me, I said yes to it. So be prepared in your journey to say yes, not no, when someone asks you to do something in your job or to ask you to do another job outside of your current job. So always be prepared to say yes, because by saying no, you might be blocking blessings that's out there for you. So that's the importance of that networking, Dr. Ramsey, when you're connected with so many different people from so many different places, you gotta be open, and you gotta be prepared to go where those opportunities will be. And as you know, in our journey in higher ed, especially in administration arena, you got to be ready to go, and you got to be ready to go to create these opportunities that's going to show all those blessings. I can guarantee you, Dr. Ramsey, when you were provost at Shaw University or provost at Lincoln University, you had no idea that you would end up one day president of Medgar Evers College. But because you said yes during those steps when people ask you to do things. Now you're the president of this very prestigious college because of your openness for these opportunities.
Yeah, I remember saying yes to you when we had that conversation about my relationship with Thurgood College Fund, and so and of course that's not something that was expected. But I hear you, and I hope the students hear you because it is so important. Sometimes we are afraid to make those moves because we haven't been there before. Yep. But one of the things that we need to do is that we need to walk toward our fears, not run from our fears. And so a lot is going on in the nation today as it relates to higher education, and with, of course, COVID that impacted a number of things as well. And colleges and universities in this nation tend to be closing down. This is a very interesting time, and I received text messages and phone calls the other week because of a college that's closing down in Illinois, and everyone thought it was the college that I had recently left.
I got those calls too.
And so I had to explain, no, that college is in Illinois, and that college is not an HBCU, in spite of what the paper said. It is not an HBCU. It is not that same school. And so as it relates to that, what do you see as some of the major challenges today surrounding institutions as it relates to things like having a steady enrollment at the institution?
So again, you hit it right on the nail as it relates to these challenges. But what we are seeing and what we are experiencing, these challenges are turning into opportunities. And what I mean by that, what we are hearing from our partners and from our investors, this doubling down to supporting historically Black colleges and predominantly Black institutions, because HBCUs, I'm not hearing this question, why do we have HBCUs? I'm hearing the question, why don't we have them? And I'm also hearing, the importance of these institutions. They have been in our community for over 150 years, providing social and economic opportunities for our community and for African Americans when we didn't have any those places to go, when we didn't have the luxury to go to a white institution because there were laws on the books that prohibited us from being able to go there. So what did we have to do? We had to create our own. We had to create our own medical schools. We had to create our own law schools, our own dental schools. We had to create the Black middle class as we know it today. Without HBCUs, there wouldn't be a Black middle class as we know it today here. So, so I think about that, and I think about, the need and all of this, this negative energy around, this racism is still in our country, and being able to use HBCUs and using those institutions as the answer to elevating those out of those situations that some of our communities are located in, where there are financial challenges in those areas, and there are economic challenges because our institutions have been historically and have always been underfunded. Now we're talking about what will happen when you really start funding these institutions at the level that is on the same level as some of these other institutions that have been funded for so many years at a level playing field. So what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is just this interest in HBCUs, this interest in trying to do something to help African Americans to continue to move out of their current situation that they're in, because we still have, as I stated earlier, we still have a large percentage of our students who are eligible for the Pell Grant. Almost 75% of the students that attend HBCUs are eligible for the Pell Grant. And the Pell Grant is an entitlement program that is set up in order for you to be eligible for it. Your family income has got to be less than $40,000 to $50,000. And you know yourself, if you're trying to send someone to college and your family income of 4 is $50,000 and you're trying to live, it's almost impossible. So what we know that these students they have grit. These students want this. They want to come to our institutions because it's a positive environment. It's something that's going to lift them up. And we know that a 4-year degree is still worth something in this country. That currency means something. So the more we can get our students in our institutions, the more we can put resources that support them to graduate, to move them into the middle class, the better it will be for this country in the long run. So I hear those challenges. It's unfortunate that Lincoln of Illinois had to close, but what we're also seeing is some of the HBCUs are reopening again. Morris Brown, for example, had closed. Now they're coming back. So some of our institutions, Payne College and Augusta, had lost their accreditation. They're coming back. So we're seeing a resurgence of some of our historically Black colleges because there is a need, and that need is more now than ever.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so related kind of, to on the enrollment side and some of the things you're saying that you just said, seems to be this new wave where people are trying to convince students that are graduating high school, you don't need to go to college, get a job, go into a tech area, you can make a lot of money. What do you say to convince that student who is in that situation where you're speaking about, where they are from a family that has a low expected family contribution, and there's this company over here dangling, here, you need to get this job. What do you say to a student like that about trying to get them to go to college?
That's another good question, because that pressure, that economic pressure is there, and it's in our community. And what we say to those students that are in those situations, what is the pathway for promotion in a job like that? And 9 times out of 10, that answer is going to be, in order to get promoted, you're going to have advanced education. So you either get this quick buck now and stop, or you put in the time and come out and you're already ahead 4 years later. So it's almost like this delayed impact. Either, we want it now and you get it, but then you freeze and you want more. In order for you to get more, you're going to have to go back and get this. There is no denying this. A college degree is worth something. You're a scientist, you've done the research, the data is out there that those students who have education, have a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, those students make more money in the long run than those students that don't have a 2-year or 4-year degree. So you try to reason with these young people and recognize it, especially if they have talent. And if that company is not providing them with some sort of online course opportunity while they are working there, then they need to rethink that whole process about whether or not taking that opportunity. And occasionally we do run into students like that, and we lay that out, because ultimately we live in a country where we get to make our decisions where we're going to go, but we want to give them advice, just like you said in the opening, about the importance of having a mentor, having someone that you can go to. So those students that might have those questions, they need to go to someone that's been through it. And sometimes it's called a delayed gratification. We want this instant gratification, but the 4-year process and the 2-year process is a delayed gratification. You're getting ready for graduation. Those students have been waiting for this moment for years. That's a delayed gratification. That gratification is going to feel very, very good and because of the opportunity. So that's my thoughts on that when we have that, because we do need our students pursuing these advanced opportunities.
Yeah, thank you for that, and that's a great response for those students who who are thinking about, well, let me just take this job offer. Now, I want to go from a different type of student. Here's a student who really wants to go to college, but they do not think that college is a viable option for them because of their family situation, or because of their grades, or because of SAT scores, or whatever the particular thing is that they think might be impossible for them to overcome as it relates to being able to go to college. What would you tell a student like that?
You know, I would, and I can tell you, I've taught the students like that too, and I've actually taught the students who, and this is very unfortunate, but this is a reality. We're being real here. I've taught the students that their family members have told them that we can't afford to send you to college, so you can't go. And I have encouraged those students who run up to those roadblocks and to pursue. I have one young lady that I'm working with right now as we speak, where her mother told her that she wasn't going to help her to go to school because she couldn't afford it. She had other things to take care of. And this young lady worked at Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A had a program that they would support you when you go to college and support you with scholarships. And she wanted to leave her own state. She was in North Carolina and she wanted to go out of state, and she wanted to actually go to Florida A&M. And this young lady, so talented, she went on and did it. She applied for the financial aid. Her mother just signed the financial aid document for her, but didn't do it. She did everything on her own. And she went to Florida A&M. And this young lady is a junior now at Florida A&M. Her grade point average is 3.7. And she's doing it. She's doing it because she is moving forward. And that's what I would encourage these young people. Sometimes you may not know what you can do when you take that step out there, and how many people that will help you along the way. Even though you may have somebody that might be close to you and they're not that sure. And what's happening, there's insecurity about you leaving that nest. And so therefore, but sometimes you have to jump out there, and you have to jump out, and then you'll be surprised who will help you, because going to college is a positive step. Let me back up. Going to college is a positive step. When people see you making positive steps, others will join you in that walk. And that's what I've seen with this particular young lady, where others have stepped in. She's one of our TMCF scholars. She's got scholarships from other places, but before that, she didn't have any of that, but she took that step. And that's the big thing I would tell people. You're 18, and in some cases, you might feel like you're grown, but you're not really grown, but you're old enough to make that decision. And sometimes it could create some tension, but you're taking a positive step. And when you take positive steps, positive things will happen for you to make your life better. A college education will help you have a better life. That's what a better life. And that's the great thing about going to college.
Thank you. And so the student has been convinced. And so the institutions, of course, have to do something to make access possible for these students. So what strategies could colleges and universities implement to increase access to education?
That's another important question. The biggest thing is reducing the cost to attend college, and that's one of the biggest barriers that becomes a roadblock for a lot of our students. They have so much talent, but because the cost of education is increasing, that's why a lot of our college presidents, when they received the funds from the federal government during the pandemic, they used those dollars, and we put language in there, and TMCF and UNCF and NAFIO was very clear that the schools could use those dollars to erase the debt that these students have, because they have a balance at the end where they owe money to the institution, and sometimes by owing the money that prohibits them from continuing that journey. So I think that blocks access. So what we want to do is to remove that barrier. And that's why we're asking for Congress to double Pell. Right now, Pell is about 6,500. We got all the advocacy organizations, ACE, all of them are behind this initiative to try to get the doubling of Pell, because that has been a very successful program that allow access to occur in a very strategic way. So using those resources to help these young people to gain this access, because again, HBCUs have been doing it. HBCUs have been, and predominantly Black institutions have been, that access door opener, right? It's been that opportunity within the community. Some of them have what they call open enrollment, where they will allow you to come in because it's open access so that you can become what you have, what that's in you to be your authentic self. And so I think the one thing that is important here is that to remove barriers that could block you from advancing to the next step in your life is very, very important for our institutions to focus in on. So that's why you hear us talking a lot about financial aid. You hear us talking a lot about retention programs, because what we know about the data with the retention is that those students who start and they come back the second year, they have a higher percentage of graduating versus those students who start and stop and say, I'm coming back. Once you leave, you're out. So therefore, that's why you see a lot of emphasis around putting resources in that second year student so that they can come back and they can continue that journey.
And thank you for that. And it's interesting, the advocacy, of course, is so important for us to have Pell increase. And back in March, I did testimony representing PBIs, and it was said by one of the Congress people that something to the effect of Pell causing people not to get married. What kind of things, I know, what kinds of things does Thurgood Marshall College Fund do to try to educate the Congress people about these types of issues?
So we spent a lot of time with our members of Congress, both on the House and both on the Senate. We're a bipartisan organization. We spent a lot of time with the staffers, as you know, with doing your experience in coming up here on the Hill and talking to the legislators. Is all about connecting with the staffers, because they're the ones that are doing the work. So they all have education policy staffers. So we spend time educating them about the importance of our institutions, what we do, and reminding them their responsibility in terms of supporting these institutions that are providing opportunities for those who've been, in some cases, disadvantaged, and those who don't have any other options. And so that's a major pillar, because that is a major part of the legacy of Thurgood Marshall. As you know, Thurgood Marshall was the lawyer. I love telling this story about Justice Marshall. You know, before he became the Supreme Court Justice, he was the lead general counsel for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund right there in New York City. And he argued before the Supreme Court 32 times before the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, and won 29 of those cases. And one of the hallmark cases that he led was Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, which tore down desegregation in higher education, which basically said, you know, it was a major law that was on the books called Plessy versus Ferguson, that basically said that had a separate but equal doctrine, which was ripped apart. Justice Marshall challenged that in the legal system, and that created the opportunities that we know today throughout America. So using this platform that we have here in educating members who are policymakers that can have an impact is part of our responsibility here at Thurgood Marshall College Fund.
That's wonderful to hear, and for our audience to hear. because the people who are in the decision-making seat, I feel strongly that they really need to hear our stories and also to understand the importance of what it is that we do and how their support of these institutions then actually is supporting the nation in that it is going to help to increase the economics of a particular area, because according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, on the average every degree that a person gets, it increases the household income by about $7,000, and so that helps the nation. And then, of course, with our institutions, we are making great contributions to this nation. And so I'm just really happy to hear that a lot of that education is being done for these Congress people. But there's one challenge that I see that HBCUs and PBIs, one challenge that both of these institutions face, and that is that whole graduation retention rate definition.
Yeah.
It was designed some years ago, and the thing about it is that student that you spoke about a little bit earlier, that student type that may drop out. They may drop out, but they may come back. The thing about it is, if they drop out and they come back, they are not counted. Right. And so it makes it appear that your school is not doing a very good job with regard to graduating your students or retaining your students. But it really boils down to the federal definition of retention and graduation rates. Has Thurgood Marshall been involved in any way in trying to get that federal definition changed?
Well, not in that as specific as you just outlined, because we're hearing that, and we have not made that one of our priorities at this particular time. Not to say it won't be one of our priorities, because we are hearing more and more around trying to get people to understand that retention at one institution is different. You can't compare the same. You can't compare the same. You can't compare the student, because they all come from different backgrounds and different levels in terms of their progression. And, in some cases, it's that point that you just made. There are some students, it might take them 8 years to graduate, because I call it life. And when life happens, you can't get in the way of life. And so therefore, it's not fair for them not to be counted in the cohort that they started in. And so, yes, I hear what you're saying. We're hearing more of that. And I do see that as something that we probably will be addressing in the near future in a very strategic way. The biggest thing that we are focusing on right now, I would say the most important aspect from our perspective, what we're hearing from our campus is a doubling of Pell and infrastructure money for our campuses, and making sure that they have money for facilities and research funds, and that we're getting our institutions are getting an adequate share of the research funds. We were able to pass a legislation called the Hbcu Partners Act. That's a piece of legislation that we passed with UNCF and NAFIO. And in that legislation is very clear. And we're working with the Department of Education right now on how to actually actualize this. This is a law that's on the book that's making it a requirement that all of the federal agencies have some sort of program with our HBCUs, and that the funding, when you distribute funds out, that HBCUs are included in that funding, and it's automatic from that perspective. And we're pushing that very hard. And this law is on the books that we put in there that will enforce them to be able to report out back to Congress what have they done in their efforts to improve the number of HBCUs participating in the Department of Energy or the NIH or NSF, because we have to keep that type of pressure, because if we don't, we get left out from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for this conversation. And our time is winding down. So at this point, what I'd like you to do is to just share anything that you would like to share with our audience before we leave the air.
Well, I just want to let the audience know you have a great president. I'm speaking from experience. I know Dr. Ramsey. I've known her for a while now. And when she shared with me that she was going to be the president of this great institution, I jumped for joy. I mean, I was shouting with her. I said that they are so blessed to have someone with this amount of experience leading this institution at this time. And the provost, Dr. Whitehead, said it best when she said that taking Medgar Evers College to the next level, that's going to happen. There is no question about it. You just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the ride, because there are going to be a lot of people supporting Medgar Evers, including the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We're behind you 100%. We're cheering you on. We're watching the progress that's happening there, the support that you're getting from the city, which is so important from that perspective to continue to move this important institution along, because it's a very, very important institution to our community, and having the right leadership there is so important. So we're really excited about what you're going to do for this great institution, and how we can continue to partner with you and continue to be there arm in arm along this journey. So thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this presidential lecture series. I hope I get an invitation back to campus, because I like coming to New York. I would prefer to be there personally with you, sitting beside you there in your studio, but we understand why I'm not there, because of this Zoom, this COVID thing that's still out there from that perspective. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you all tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Williams, and thank you for those kind words that you shared. And thanks to you, our listening audience, and we look forward to our lecture series continuing this fall. And again, we are so thankful to our guest, Dr. Harry Williams, president of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.